right, how's everybody doing? Hopefully well. I did not get to record yesterday, which was Monday, so I'm going to cover yesterday's science along with today's for what we've done, okay? So let's go ahead and get started. All right, what we're going to be looking at is our Common Core standard, which is 5L 2.1, and that is basically being able to compare the characteristics of several common ecosystems, including estuaries and salt marshes, oceans, lakes and ponds, forests, and grasslands, just to name a few, okay? Some essential questions that sorry if it got cut off, but we could make do. Some essential questions that we have to think about: what characteristics are common in all ecosystems? Also, what characteristics are specific to certain ecosystems? So just some essential questions to think about as we go through this. Some key vocabulary. So definitely feel free to write vocabulary down. As mentioned, in science for 5th grade, there is well over 100 vocabulary words, of which you are going to need to know. So just to name some for this particular topic, definitely write these down, which would be great. It'd be beneficial to help you out. But some key vocabulary for ecosystems is population. Population is a group of individuals of the same species inhabiting the same area. A community is a group of interacting species living in the same place. Ecosystem is a biological community of interacting organisms and their physical environment. And also biome, which is a large community of plants and animals that occupies a distinct region. Again, I also want to mention, feel free to pause the video at any time so you can get this down, and then we'll just keep going from there, okay? All right, so of course, looking at some characteristics that are common with all ecosystems and discussing biomes, we want to also talk about what a climate is, okay? So a climate is the characteristic condition of the atmosphere near the Earth's surface at a certain place on Earth. This is very crucial, so here's what I would want you to write down. It is the long-term weather of that area, at least 30 years. So what does that mean? That means it takes about 30 years, at least 30 years, for a climate to be labeled a climate, okay? It's far different than like, an area's temperature, or because that can easily change in a day, in minutes, in hours, whatever. But a climate is determined to be a specific climate for a lot of documentation taken and studied for at least 30 years, okay? This includes the region's general pattern of weather conditions, seasons, and weather extremes like hurricanes, droughts, or rainy periods. Two of the most important factors, this is crucial, so definitely write this down too. Two of the most important factors determining an area's climate are air temperature and precipitation. Two of the most important factors determining an area's climate are air temperature and precipitation. So hopefully you know that that is the state of North Carolina. How would you then be able to describe our climate? Our climate is that it changes from the Atlantic coast to the Appalachian Mountains and changes throughout the seasons, but mostly it is a humid subtropical with hot, humid summers and mild winters. So we can tell that North Carolina's climate is this for the main reason that during the summertime, it gets very hot, and we don't experience winters like other states. Again, Mr. ONeal being from New York, we wouldn't experience what New York experiences because that state is further north. So it's a different area, different type of climate, right? But nonetheless, this would describe North Carolina's climate, okay? So why is our climate then different from other places in the world? The main reason for this, which is crucial, is climate is caused by the uneven heating of the Earth, which creates cold and warm air masses. So that basically means the fact that the Earth is tilted on its axis, certain areas get direct sunlight compared to other areas. So their climate will definitely differ. Okay. Excuse me. Have you ever wondered why one area of the world is a desert, another a grassland, and another a rainforest? Why are there different forests and deserts? And why are there different types of life in each area? The answer to that is climate. And if you look at that map there of the globe, you of course have two Arctic zones, north and south, right? Which would be north and south poles if you were to think of it like that. Then you have an area that is like the Arctic Circle. At the bottom, it's the Antarctic Circle, right? That's more south. The Arctic is north. Then you have the Tropic of Cancer. In the middle, of course, you have the equator. And then you have the Tropic of Capricorn, okay? Now, within those, you see on the right-hand side, there are two temperate zones, which are after the Arctic. And then in the middle, you have more of tropical zones. That's where the sunlight is more direct. And as we should know, anything close to the equator is much warmer compared to areas that are not close to the equator, okay? So we, of course, have why no polar pineapples. So let's take a look at this video.
Plants are awesome. They're usually quite pretty. The bigger ones provide shade in the summer, many of them have flowers, and some of them are downright tasty. They even do something that most other living things on Earth can't do. Plants take the energy from the sun and change it into chemical energy through photosynthesis. This is the energy that they use to grow. I'm sure you already realize that certain plants, like pineapples, only grow in certain places, specifically places that are tropical, warm, sunny, and a really nice place to take a vacation. But you don't naturally find pineapples in the same places as you do penguins. But why is that? Why do some plants grow in certain areas of the Earth and not others? Like so many things, the answer has to do with the sun. The Earth orbits the sun every 365 days. It takes this trip tilted on an invisible line called its axis. This tilt means that the sun's light doesn't hit the Earth evenly. You know this from when we talked about the seasons and why they happen. But seasons aren't the only thing caused by Earth's tilt. Some parts of the Earth, specifically near the equator, get a lot of direct sunlight, or sunlight that beams straight down instead of at an angle. Direct sunlight is pretty intense and hot, so the areas around the equator are warm all the time. Now, the opposite is true for the poles. They get a lot more indirect sunlight, or sunlight that strikes the Earth at a shallow angle all year long. And angled rays are a lot weaker, so they're less warm. And this explains why there are no pineapples at the South Pole. How? Let's say you grow 2 bean seeds in the same conditions in the same room. Same amount of soil, same amount of water daily, even the same kind of pot. Then let's say you put one in direct sunlight, like on a windowsill, and the other across the room on the table. And then you wait. After about 3 weeks, if you compare the plant grown in direct sunlight with the one grown in indirect sunlight, you'd see that the one grown in direct sunlight is a lot bigger, not to mention happier and healthier, if greenness is any indication. And why shouldn't it be? It's had more sunlight to change its energy through photosynthesis, and that energy means more growth. And if you compare the temperature on the windowsill to the temperature on the table, you'd see that the plant by the window was growing in warmer temperatures too. Since the equator gets direct sunlight all year long, it has warm temperatures all year long. So picky plants like pineapples, which take a long time and a lot of energy to produce that yummy fruit, are able to grow there. But pineapples at the poles? Nope. There's just not enough energy from the sunlight there to give the plant what it needs to survive. So, the Earth's tilt on its axis means the areas around the equator get direct sunlight all year long. This means warm temperatures throughout the year, and the areas near the Earth's poles get indirect sunlight all year long, which means colder temperatures throughout the year. Since plants need sunlight for photosynthesis, areas that get a lot of direct sunlight, like around the equator, are home to lots of plants, especially the ones that take a long time to grow. And that's why there are no pineapples at the poles. So all I'm saying is, if you happen to be traveling to the North or South Pole sometime soon, and you really like pineapple, you should just plan on packing some with you. Don't say I didn't warn ya.
All right. So again, let's keep things moving. Okay. So hopefully you got an understanding of why, of course, there are no pineapples at the poles. Okay. We also have world biomes, which is an introduction to climate. So I definitely want you to take a look at this.
Man, it's freezing. I wish it was sunny and hot. It's too dry. Need water. Please get me out of here. Huh? Oh. So humid. You could cut through this air with a knife. I just want something a little bit drier, maybe with a view. Huh.
Huh. Oh well, I wonder if there's even such a thing as a perfect climate.
Okay, so it might be common sense that climates near the poles would be cold, and climates near the equator would be hot.
But if you traveled around the equator, you would find that some regions had hot and dry climates, and some are hot and humid. And between the equator and the poles, where you would only expect some temperate climates, you would find some pretty amazing extremes. Let's go and visit some of these extremes and see if we can figure out what causes them. All right, so we're here in the deserts of Moab, and it's extremely dry because there's very little precipitation. The amount that falls here is determined by a few different factors.
Winds, for example, move clouds, which are essentially masses of water vapor that have condensed. And if there's a mountain range in the path of the wind, the clouds rise up over the mountain and cool. Now this causes the rain or snow to fall on the windward side of the mountain. The mountain range prevents the precipitation to reach the leeward side of the mountain where it's much drier. So, deserts are frequently found on the leeward sides of mountains.
All right, but precipitation is only one component of climate. Then there's temperature.
So why is the equator hot and the poles cold? Well, the sun's energy hits Earth more directly at the equator, and at the poles, the sun's energy comes in at more of an angle. So, more energy is absorbed at the equator, and the equator is hot. But the sun's energy doesn't heat the air directly. Instead, it heats up the ground, and the ground warms up the air.
Believe it or not, but temperature and climate can also be affected by how close an area is to a large body of water, like the ocean. So to help us explain this, we're going to follow Jonas who's in an area a little bit cooler than here.
That's true. In some parts of the world, the ocean plays an important part in heating up the land.
Like here in Iceland, figure this one out. Reykjavik, the capital of Iceland, is at a latitude of 65 degrees north, but has a yearly temperature that is much higher than you would normally expect being this close to the North Pole.
The mean annual temperature of Reykjavik is about 5 degrees Celsius. But on the coast of Alaska, at about the same latitude, the mean annual temperature is less than -3 degrees Celsius.
How could this be?
Well, it turns out that the ocean out here is bringing part of the Caribbean heat with it.
The Gulf Stream starting in the Gulf of Mexico carries warm water north and east. A branch of the Gulf Stream called the Irminga Current splits off and flows along the southern and western coast of Iceland and warms the air, creating milder temperatures also on land.
So can anything else affect our global climate? Unfortunately, yes.
Human activities like burning oil, wood, coal and natural gas produce greenhouse gases, such as carbon dioxide. These have increased a lot over the last couple of 100 years. Greenhouse gases trap the infrared radiation, which would normally leave Earth's atmosphere. When greenhouse gases increase and more energy gets trapped, it causes our global temperature to increase. Scientists have evidence that this increase is already affecting climates worldwide.
But would a slight change in temperature really be such a bad thing? I mean, it can get pretty cold up here. Wouldn't it be nice if we can just raise the temperature just a little bit? So you might think that increased temperatures would be beneficial, but one problem is that increased temperatures will melt polar ice caps and glaciers, which could flood coastal areas in many parts of the world. So we learned that Precipitation and temperature are two principal factors that affect different climate. But humans have an impact too. As always, we encourage you to never stop exploring your world.
All right. So again, as we continue with this, all right, so that was another video on world biomes and looking at climate, okay? So climate controls our world's biomes. The climate of a region will then determine what plants will grow there and which animals will, of course, inhabit it. All three components, climate, plants, and animals, are interwoven to create the fabric of a biome. Now, here's a crucial thing that you should definitely write down what a biome is. A biome is a large, distinctive complex of plant communities created and maintained by climate. You also did write down the definition earlier, so I would definitely extend it and put this in for what a biome is. Again, is a large, distinctive complex of plant communities created and maintained by climate. Here we do have a few other videos. I will show these videos at a later time, but I want to make sure you get down exactly what we did today, so I'm going to skip these. This is also very key. Rainfall and temperature help determine the type of biome. Rainfall and temperature determine the type of biome. So, an area or a climate or a biome that has lots of rain and mild temperatures would look something like this. Okay, a lot of greenery, right? Grass, trees. An area that has warmer conditions and very little rainfall would look like this. Two complete different biomes, different areas, different climates that you see here. Of course, the one on the right being a desert. You notice the difference in the plant life. Okay, there's also a difference in animals and species that live there too. Okay, here, of course, is a picture of different climate zones. Ours, of course, would be labeled based on the legend at the bottom, would be under C. Hopefully you can recognize that. We would be in a temperate, more temperate area. Okay. Now, rainfall, of course, varies around the planet. All right. So question, where does the planet then get most of the rain? If you're looking at the legend on the left-hand side, the key, right, you would notice some of the darker areas, purple, bluish areas, whatever, right? That would be there. That would have the most rainfall. Okay. Where on the planet would then get the least amount of rainfall? If you're looking for like more of the brighter colors or lighter colors, you would see it there. So some characteristics of biomes: a large area of the earth, there's similar predictable climates, there's similar plants, there's a similar soil in order for the plants to, of course, grow. And of course, there is a similar amount of sunlight. So those are characteristics for what would make up certain biomes. Again, here is a picture of world biomes. And then that's going to bring us into now characteristics of specific certain ecosystems, okay? So we're going to go through these land ecosystems. Again, please pause when needed to copy down any notes that you need. We're going to skip the videos. Again, I can show these videos at a later time. On study jams, of course, it also mentions what we're going to talk about soon, so definitely check out study jams. But there are 6 biomes that we're definitely going to talk about for land ecosystems. Another term for a land ecosystem is called terrestrial ecosystems. So first we have a tundra. Tundra means no trees grow there. They have dwarf plants, which equal 8 weeks. What does that mean? That means dwarf plants are very small plants, and their lifespan is about 8 weeks because it's very cold. There's not much rain. They may have sunlight, but it may not be that much sunlight, right? But it's very cold, so dwarf plants can survive for about 8 weeks. What type of animals live there? Polar bears, reindeer, maybe some Arctic fox, right? Snow owls, etc. Okay, that's a tundra. Taiga, not a tiger, but a taiga. These are found in Canada, Europe, Asia. They experience 2 seasons. We experience, of course, 4, but this area sees 2, and that's cold winters and warm summers. And some of the animals you may see are moose and even geese. Deciduous forest. Hopefully you can pause and repeat that. Deciduous forest. That is, ladies and gentlemen, our biome, where we are, where we live, okay? Our location, North Carolina, we are considered a deciduous forest. What does that mean? That means we have yearly cycles of plant growth. In the spring, plants and flowers bloom. In the fall, the leaves on the trees fall, okay? Some animals that you would see here would be foxes, squirrels, raccoons, right? So that would be a deciduous forest. That is where we are located. A rainforest. A rainforest covers 7% of the entire Earth. Now you might say, oh, that's pretty little bit. Okay, it's a small percentage, but if you think about the entire Earth, right? Most of the Earth, of course, as we've heard, is covered by water. You may already know that, right? But there are some land, and on the land, of course, the rainforest covers 7%. 50% of all species, right? That is where the rainforest would be. It would be 50% of all species live in the rainforest. Also, it is very warm. It's humid. We have heavy rain. And types of animals that you might see in a rainforest would be toucans. Okay, those are like the birds with the big beak. Think of Fruit Loops, right? Toucan Sam, right? Toucans, monkeys, those are the type of animals that would live in a rainforest, okay? Very warm, very humid, a lot of rain. I know a question was asked, does it rain all the time or every day? I personally don't know if it would rain every day, but I would say if it rains a lot, it probably rains a lot at a certain time. And then it's very hot and humid, and then it will rain again. So can it rain for a long period of time? I'm sure. But that's what a rainforest is, okay? Whether there's more sun or less sun, it just depends. But there's a lot of rain, and it's very warm, very humid. A grassland. What a grassland is. In Africa, Asia, and South America, and also the U.S., you would find grasslands, okay? I guess a great way of thinking of it is the land that has a widespread amount of grass, right? So which means there's got to be some rain, but also there also has to be sunlight. So in Africa, the grasslands are considered the savanna. Again, Asia and South America have grasslands. There's a lot of rain, but then there's drought. What drought means is could be a time frame when there is no rain, and many things, the ground, plants, dries up. Think of the movie The Lion King, right? The Lion King, they would all gather around what is called the watering hole, right? They would all gather around this little area. All different types of animals would gather there. But knowing that and looking at how the Lion King it was grasslands, and it was very dry, but it did rain at times. But then, of course, could be a lot of sun and a lot of drought. What grows there is corn, wheat, and barley. Not barely, okay, barley. In the U.S., you find prairie dogs. That's one of the reasons why in the U.S. it's called prairies, okay? The grasslands are called prairies, but they have prairie dogs. There's buffalo. In Africa, there's rhinos, zebras, gazelles, etc. And on the left, you see no drought, more rain equals more trees. What does that mean? That means when there is no drought, but there is more rain, you're eventually going to end up getting more trees. But when there is drought and no rain, a lot of the plants can, of course, die because it needs sunlight, it needs rain, of course, and other things to prosper, to grow. Okay. And of course, we have deserts, right? A desert is less than 10 inches of rain per year, very dry. Less than 10 inches of rain per year. It's very hot during the day, but then very cold at night. And types of animals that can live here are iguanas, different lizards, jackals, right? Of course, plants, you would think about cactus or cacti, if there's more than one, right? And that, of course, would bring us to another video. But again, I'm going to stop here with deserts. Hopefully you got something from this. And again, don't forget, strive for greatness. Make sure you study, work hard, and we're going to continue rocking on. Take care.